and these are 12 things you didn't know that you could do in Cricut Design Space. Let's jump right in. Some of these will be things that you have heard of before, and some will be hopefully really helpful tips and tricks that are going to help you designing your next project and making your life a little bit easier when using your Cricut. So first up, the first thing I want to tell you about is something called pattern fill. It's been on Design Space since I think the beginning of time. It's been there for a very long time, and it's really helpful with print then cut to create like multicolored images. So in operation, when you've got an image or shape or text highlighted, you're going to go to print then cut, and then click on the color library, and you're going to hit this drop down here and click pattern. Then you're going to see this library of patterns pop up. Now, unfortunately, you can't search this library. You just have to kind of hope for the best and shimmy down and find which one you'd like. But you can click on a pattern and it will fill your shape with that pattern. So when you go to use print then cut, you can then print out this star and it will cut it out. You can also edit pattern, and you can have a play here with scale of the pattern by dragging this backwards and forwards. You can change the kind of layout of where everything sits, and you can also rotate as well. So really handy for creating backgrounds or just making a lovely pattern tag or sticker or something like that. Just a really helpful little kind of tool that isn't talked about often. Next up, let's talk about when you have an image which you've welded, so you can text that you've welded, so you can no longer find out what that font is called. The font panel doesn't show up anymore because you've welded it, but you would love to know what the font is so that you can look at it and find it again. What you're going to do, make sure you're full screen. Here we are. You are going to left click and click image info. You'll get this lovely menu come up, image info, and then you'll see here grayed out you've got font analog script, so you know that that is the font that you used, and we can see that. So I can search for that font. Actually, I think I'll find it just here. There it is, and I've got the exact same font. So that's a really handy way, especially for old projects when you're coming back to them and you want to add to them, to find out what that text is. My next one is for images. You can do the same thing. So you can head to image info, and you can actually click on this information here and it will bring you up the image in the image library. This is helpful because you can find out the reference number and the name of the project, but you can also find out if it's a Cricut design. You won't see any detail here, or if it's by one of the CAP artists, that's Cricut artist contributing artist program, any of those CAP artists, their photo will show up here. These are designers who have been approved by Cricut, who create art specifically for the Design Space library, just like this one here, and they all have a profile, so you can click on their name like this one here, and then you can see the rest of the art that artist has created. So you might actually end up finding something similar to the one that you already had. So if we scroll down, we'll see this, this kind of art is a similar style. So really helpful to find, something that we like, we can find more of, which is really handy. And we can follow these artists as well, and then I'll show you later how we can come back and find their work later on. Then next up is one of my personal favorite tools in Design Space that just doesn't get used very often and people don't notice it's there and how handy it is, and that is Color Sync. It lives in the layers panel in the desktop version of Design Space up here. or it lives in the app as well. You can find it there. And this is a really handy way to change colour of what's on your canvas really quickly, because remember, if things show as a different colour in Design Space will put them on a different mat. So it assumes it's a different coloured material or a different type of material. So that means sometimes if we've got lots of shapes, images, and we want to quickly edit the colours of them, we can use Colour Sync. And all you do is you literally drag and drop a colour into another colour and you'll see that changes. Or we can drag a whole colour into another colour to change things all at once. So we can drag all three into pink and everything changes into that colour. So really handy way to edit colours. And we can click undo and those colours will come back for us as well. And this is a lot quicker than individually selecting our images, heading to the colour library, picking a colour. We can just drag and drop and make it the right colour. And that is Colour Sync. Next up, also colour related, is a really handy hack which people just don't realise is a thing. And that is that Cricut Design Space cuts in rainbow order. So it's going to cut white first, grey, then black, then it's going to start with red, etc. So if we go to make it right now, you'll see this. If I click on mat, here we go, we're cutting red first, yellow, green, blue, and then we go into the gradient of our pinks here, starting light to dark. So this means if we want to be in charge of what mats cut first, instead of selecting them individually, we can make that happen. So when you've got a layered design like this butterfly, where we've got 3 layers to stick onto each other, we probably want the final layer to cut first, because then when the second layer cuts, we can stick it on whilst this layer is cutting, and then when that's done, we can stick that on top as well. So if we use Colour Sync, since we're here, we can drag these, so we can drag the darkest colour into red, we'll go yellow for that one, and then green. Now when we head to make it, you'll see those are going to cut in order. So my red one, my back one is going to cut first, then my second one, and then my third one. So instead of me having to individually select the mats, I've now set this up so that it's going to cut in order. So when you've got a big project or something where you're sticking things together, something 3D, and you really want to make sure you're cutting in order, remember the machine doesn't actually know what type of, what colour material you're popping into it. So this just means once you've finalised your design, you know what materials you're cutting on, you can switch up the colours here to help you pop those mats in the right place. Just a really, really handy way to switch that up. Okay, next one is a handy little thing up here in the top. This is on desktop only. In this top panel, you have File, Edit, View. You've got Reload and Force Reload. These are one of my favourite buttons in Design Space. They're basically a refresh button. Now, the first thing I do every day when I sit down at my computer, because I keep Design Space open all the time, is I will save my project from the previous day, and then I will do a force reload. And basically this refreshes Design Space, checks for an update. It's going to make sure you've got all the images and new projects are added to the library. If anything new's happening, is going to make sure you've got it, and it just kind of refreshes it. It's like giving it, like, I don't know, it's vitamins or something. It just refreshes it. So it's a really good habit to get into, especially if you've left Design Space open for a long period of time. Force Reload is going to help you do that. Just beware, if you haven't saved your work and you do a Force Reload, you will lose your work. So make sure you've saved it before you click Force Reload. I also use the two of these if something is going wrong in Design Space. If a wheel is whirring around, something is taking a long time, something isn't loading properly, something just looks a bit funny, it's not right, I will wait about 30 seconds and then I'll get impatient and I will go and force reload. And I would say 98% of the time that fixes my issue, sorts me out, and I'm off again doing what I wanted to do. So highly recommend having those kind of up your sleeve, because they're really helpful. Reload will still work if you haven't saved your work. This is more of kind of just a little refresh. So just bear in mind, force reload is like the full, basically restarts Design Space for you. That's what those two do. Really, really handy. Next up, number 7, also up in this top panel, is File and New Window. Now this is how you can cut on more than one machine at once, or be designing whilst cutting. So if you click New Window, what will happen is a whole new Design Space window will open up for you, and you can start a new project, you can design, you can start cutting as normal. So if you've got 4, 5, 6 machines, whatever, you can cut on all of those by just keep on opening a new window. Or if when you're cutting something and you're like, oh, I want to be working on my next thing, you can do that. File, New Window, and you can be working on your next project while the other one is cutting. Really, really handy. Okay, next up, fonts. Let's talk about fonts. This is one you might know. It's something new that's happened recently, so you just might not have seen it yet. And that is when we add text now, the text box has changed ever so slightly. We have 3 kind of sections. Cricut, which is all of our Cricut fonts, and you'll see your Cricut Access fonts there as well. System, now these are fonts that are already saved on your computer, so your Times New Romans, all those kind of things, but also ones you have downloaded. If you've ever downloaded a font, those will be there. And then bookmarks, which is new. These are fonts you favorited, so these are saved fonts basically. And how we do that is we click this little bookmark here. So let's find one. That saves it, and then when we go to bookmarks, we will find that text. That font has been saved here. So instead of having to trawl through for all of the fonts every time to find one we love, we can just head to bookmarks and look at our favorites. Or, sometimes you're looking through for a specific font and you find one, you're like, oh, I love that. Like, I'd not noticed that one before. That would be perfect for a different project. We can now save it and keep it for next time, and we can always come back to them in our bookmarks. So that's saving your fonts, which is super handy. Remember as well, you've also got the filter section here where you can look for your writing fonts, your stencil fonts, your free fonts, ones with different layers as well. So you've got that option, and you now have the option to search by ones that are optimized for different languages too. Okay, then let's show the next one, which again is a really handy tool which I just don't think people talk about enough in Design Space. And that is the contour tool. It lives down the bottom right hand corner in the desktop. It's under Edit, I believe, in the app. You're going to click that and you get this lovely pop-up, come up, and you can see all the different sections of your cut. And this is really handy for a few things. So hide all contours, for example. If we click that, we can remove all of that detail from inside of a cut. So sometimes you just want an outline, you just want the silhouette of something, maybe for a background, or sometimes I see like animals and the outline is beautiful like a deer, but it's got a face which isn't very cute. You might want to remove that. This is how you do it. So clicking that contour. If you want to bring them back, you can do that. And the other really great way to use this is when we're cutting super small, we lose detail in our cuts, and those smaller cuts can sometimes cause us problems. So we want to remove them, because if we're cutting really small, they're not going to show up anyway. So I can go through and individually remove some of these little tiny cuts. And also we can head to this side panel and we can select those here as well. So you'll see I've removed the baubles and the lantern, and when I click away, those have gone from my image. So now if I size this really small, I haven't got teeny tiny details to weed out or to like ruin my cut because they're just too tiny. So that's a great way to use it. Another way to use it is by, here we go, I'm all set up, is to remove parts of images that have wording that we didn't want. So this is a cute image, Merry Christmas to you, but perhaps I just want it to say Merry Christmas and I want to add a name in here or something. Click contour and you can literally take away the letters that you don't want. There we go. And now we've just got Merry Christmas, and we could put our own text in the bottom. Also, this tool, another great thing it can do and be used for is for creating different color layers in a single colored image. So especially when you've uploaded your own image that perhaps wasn't an SVG, so it's just a single color, but you wanted to make parts of it different colors. Here's what we can do. We can duplicate that image, go into the original one, and let's say I'd like the berries to be red. I'm going to remove the berries from this one, so they've now gone. I'm going to head into the second one that we duplicated. I'm going to hide everything and just bring back the berries here. There we go. And now I can change the color of those berries, and those are on a separate layer. So you'll see in the layers panel, I've now got 2 layers, and my berries are now another layer in my image. And I could keep on doing that, duplicating and contouring until I have all separate colors in my image. So a really handy way to like manipulate an image even more. Which brings me really nicely to tip number 10. And this is something new that Cricut have added to help us with this issue of the text being not what we quite wanted and having to contour it out to edit it. They have brought in editable images. These are a couple of weeks old at this point, so you might not have seen them yet. And when you click on this, editable images, you'll see a great library pop up. It's just loading. And these are so handy. What you'll see is they are all images that can just be edited really quickly. Let's just do that again. See why this isn't having its moment. You know what? I'm going to use my favorite tool. I'm going to use the reload and let's see if that helps us. Here we go, there, they're loading, perfect. That was a perfect example of using reload as well. So you'll see just under 2,000 images in there at the moment. These are being added to daily, so it's worth checking back on these and keeping searching in there because you're going to see loads of different stuff. What you'll see with these images is these blue bits here, blue and grey, they can be really easily edited. So let's find a cool example of this. For example, this one, we'll add to canvas. What we can do, let me just get rid of that star, is double click on the grey and blue pieces, and we can type in our own text. So I can do, I don't know, the Smiths instead, whatever my family name is. And there we go. I've now got a personalized image, super quick, and I can head to make it, and I can make this exactly as it is, which is really cool. So it just means that you can edit stuff. It also, things like mom, you know, we see this kind of thing a lot in Design Space, where you've got American words, things like that, and you want to change it because you say mum instead of mom or whatever. We can do that now. So here we go. We can edit this image when it comes in, and we could just put mum in there. Perfect. Or, you know, if it says soccer, we can double click and change the soccer to football. It will make Design Space a lot more international, and mean that yeah, we can just really easily edit this and put it to say exactly what we want it to say, and it's going to save so much time. So yeah, have a little play with editable images and keep checking back in there, because there are some really cool bits and bobs coming up in there that you're going to be able to search and use, and will just make your life a little bit easier. Next thing I wanted to talk about is your profile in Design Space. You might not know, but everybody has a profile in Cricut Design Space, and you'll find yours in this top corner. Where just under your name you can click View Profile. Mine looks a little bit different because I am a contributing artist, so you can see my artwork there, but yours will look something like this, with your shared projects in there. Now these are projects that you personally want to share with the Cricut community, so when you create a project and you can edit it and add a photo and everything, you need to click this button, and that will make it searchable, and other people can make it in Design Space. Until you click that button, nothing will be shared, so you can stay completely anonymous if you want to, but this is quite a nice way to share your projects and a nice way to find them. You'll also notice you have notifications now, so if people are following you and they like your project, or even if they make your project, it will tell you here. And if other people you follow have created new projects, it will tell you that here too, which is really handy. And this is how you can head back to those artists that you're following. You can click on who you're following, and you'll find those other artists here. They'll all have their little flower on their name, and then you can click on their profile and you'll find all of their art as well. So it's a really quick way to go back and find the artists that you love. You'll also see now in home that your community project, your project that you've been shared, might actually turn up on the homepage in Design Space and be featured, so other people will be able to make it too, which I think is really lovely. So you'll start to see those popping up in Design Space, and you'll be able to make them as well. So that is your profile. My final top tip for you, number 12, is if we head back to the canvas. I'm going to head to make it because I want to just quickly get to the materials screen. Hopefully this will connect. Here we go. And this is, if we browse all materials, this is a really handy tip to know. These little C's, the Cricut logo next to the material, these mean this is a Cricut material. It's a material that Cricut sell or have sold in the past, and they have their own version of it. This means the cut setting for this material will have been tested on the Cricut material itself. So if you have a non-Cricut version of, say, foil poster board, you might need to adjust the setting slightly because the one you have is not the one they've tested. And they've spent time getting this setting perfect, but just be aware, you know, that's what they are testing on. So really handy just to note that if you haven't got, you know, the Cricut glitter card and it's not cutting correctly, it's not unusual that you would need to slightly change it. Or, you know, if you want to make your life easier, go for the Cricut brand stuff, and then you know you're going to get a much better cut because it's been tested specifically for that material. Hopefully that helps. And of course, while we're there, you can star materials as well. If you click the star, then they will come into your favorites here. So these are the ones I use the most, and they're there for me to come back to at any time. I'm going to head back to my canvas. That is all of my 12 things you didn't know or might not have known about Cricut Design Space. I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much. Bye.